I'm super excited today because sourcing fabric is one of the most fun, exciting parts of starting your fashion brand. It's like when things start to feel actually real. So stick with me. I'm going to give you a little overview of fabric sourcing today. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the thread. Thank you for being here. My name is Kendall, and I'm a former mentor for people starting their fashion brands from scratch. I had a women's wear line for about 7 years, and I am a Parsons graduate. So I love the process of sourcing fabric. It was always like my favorite thing to do every single year. So today I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about what it's like, how to reach out to a supplier, and just some other things you should know. So first things first, up top, I just want you to know that there are two categories of fabric that you will always be asked about by a supplier: knits and wovens. Like if you contact a supplier and you're like, yeah, I'm looking for something for dresses that I'm making, they'll be like, well, do you want a knit or a woven? So just so you know, knits are stretchy. Anything with a 4-way stretch, even if it's not very stretchy, if it has a stretch, it's a knit. Think like your stretchy t-shirts, your sweatshirts, like a dress that's slinky, that's stretchy or something like that, your yoga pants, those are knits. And then wovens are, of course, anything without a stretch, like your button-down dress shirts, your trousers, your rigid jeans, stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that because I'm always like, oh yeah, but a lot of people don't really know this. So just so you know. The second thing I want to tell you is that if you are coming at this with no fashion background, maybe no sewing background or anything, and you really don't know that much about fabric, there are lots of ways to educate yourself that are going to be really, really helpful. And I would suggest doing that really soon, because just communicating with like your pattern maker and your factory, the more you know about fabric, the easier things are going to be. So start by looking in your closet, go through and read all of the labels, figure out what things are knits, what things are wovens, what the fabric content is of this and that, and just try to get a general idea of what's what. And I would also recommend going to a fabric store if you can, if you have one nearby. Ask them questions, figure out like what's a cotton poplin versus a cotton jersey, a cotton jacquard, like a cotton voile. Like start to learn all of these things because it's going to make fabric sourcing and, like I said, the production and pre-production stage so much easier for you and for the people that you work with. Okay, so let's get into a little bit about how people source fabric. Okay, so when I started sourcing fabric, I joined this program that I later mentored for that gave us like a big database. That was one of the things, we were paying for. So I, of course, can't give you that database, but I think nowadays it's easier than ever to just kind of Google things. So what you want to start out by doing that is Googling fabric supplier database. And I did this kind of recently, and there were kind of a lot of lists out there that were really helpful. I would start as locally as you can if you live in the US. Most of these places are going to be like in New York and Los Angeles. There's pockets of other places around the US, but for the most part, they're going to be in the big cities. There's also a lot in the UK. There's a lot in Europe, in Italy, all of those places. But try to start locally if you can, because it'll cut down on shipping costs. Oh, there's a lot in Canada too. So you want to start by really exploring the website, and it's going to take a lot at first, especially if you don't know totally what you're looking for, which, right, at the beginning, we usually don't. We don't have our styles set in stone all the time, and it's pretty rare to have something specific in mind. So you might start kind of broadly searching, trying to figure out some of the bigger suppliers that are within a reasonable shipping distance and start to look at what they have, explore their website. Some websites are better than others. Some don't really have great websites at all, and you have to basically email a person to ask what they have. But for the most part, you should be able to kind of explore some of the websites. You can sometimes order swatches from there, and sometimes you just have to email someone to be able to order a swatch. So this is a swatch This one's from Kendor in Vancouver, I believe. I like them because they have a lot of sustainable fabrics. And a swatch is just, it has a big piece of fabric so you can kind of see what it feels like. And then it should have the different colors that they have. And then most places will not just outright tell you the prices. I had to usually ask, and then they give you a price list, and then I would write the prices on the swatch so I would remember. So I have like 3 binders full of these things. Over the years, you just collect them. So start by exploring the website, order swatches if you can. Don't go insane ordering a million different things. Sometimes when you don't know what you want, it's kind of unavoidable, but try to keep it a little bit specific. And if you do have to reach out to somebody to get swatches or ask questions, be extremely polite and professional. All you have to say is, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm starting an athletic wear brand." Kind of tell them, they don't need to hear your life story, but maybe tell them a little bit about what makes your brand unique so they can help and they can kind of know what you're looking for. Maybe you're like, "I'm looking to have super stretchy, thin fabric in jewel tones," or something like that, something specific. Say if it's a knit or a woven that you need, if that comes up. And then just generally see what they say and if they can send you swatches. The next email, once they send you swatches, is a good time to follow up. Always thank people. This is how you build relationships in the industry. Always be so kind and courteous and gracious. I swear this will get you so far. I've had 1 million people email me and ask me questions, and I take the time to answer their question. I never hear from them again, and I would never help them in 1 million years because it's rude. So always be kind and polite and professional. Once you get your swatches or something like that, or if they answer your question, say, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time." Feel free to ask more questions at that point. And it's totally fine up top to ask about minimums, right? The minimums is the minimum amount that they will send you. Some places like Kendor I don't think they have any minimums. Most places will have like something like a 30-yard minimum or 50-yard minimum, something like that. Some places will have like a 500-yard minimum, and you don't want to use that as a new designer. But it's perfectly fine to ask about minimums. If you've received the swatches, you can reach back out with questions and ask for the price list. That's usually what you have to do. They usually don't have prices listed on their website for whatever reason. But always, like I said, just be really kind and considerate for them helping you. And then they're more likely to help you in the future. So, okay, after that, if you start getting some swatches that you really like and you think they might work, I always think it's a good idea to do a little wash test. You can take this, okay, say I'm serious about using this piece of linen. I take it and throw it in the wash, throw it in the dryer, see how it holds up, because I have gotten swatches that I'm like, "Oh, this is perfect. I'm going to use this." Then I've washed and dried it, and it's like a wrinkly hot mess that I would never in 1 million years want to sell. So it's always good to do that. And then once you're kind of excited about possibly using the fabric, you can order a sample yardage. So most places will sell you a yard, or maybe they have a minimum of like 5 or 10 yards for sample yardage that they'll sell you so that you can actually test it in a more real way and get samples made out of it. So that would be your next step once you get serious about a fabric. And I've ordered tons of sample yardage where once I get it and I see the whole thing and I'm like feeling it, or I get a sample made in it, it doesn't work out, and that's totally normal. Again, that's why we start this process so early on, because sometimes you think you find this perfect thing, it doesn't work out, and you kind of have to start from square one again. It happens. Okay, so hopefully that gave you some tips in terms of finding a place and reaching out. Now, the last thing I will say is that I would really, really recommend, if you're getting serious about this, but serious about starting your brand, is to get yourself to a fabric show. Now, I know most of us are on our budget, and I totally understand that, but I think especially as a new designer, and especially if you don't know much about fabric, even if you do, this is where designers go to find new fabric. I always went to the LA Textile Show. They have them twice a year in February and I think September or October. I used to go every year. It was like the highlight of my year because it's so fun. I learned so much. I got so inspired. I'd always discover new suppliers. That was really fun. And sometimes I'd even get to talk to the people I've been emailing with and we'd be like, oh, I remember you. And it's really fun to build those relationships that way. But more than that, it is just an insane educational experience, especially the first time you go. So LA Textile has, I think they do 3 full days. And I always tell the people that I mentor, like, even if you just do it once, get yourself to a fabric show. Plan to spend the whole day there or maybe 2 half days because it can be overwhelming. It's a whole entire floor of this high-rise building just dedicated to fabric suppliers. It's so helpful when you're starting your business and you're not sure what you want. You go, you sit down at the booth. Some of them have a whole room because they have so much stuff. And you sit down and you go through these binders and binders. You write down the swatches you want. Then when they're done with the show, they will send everybody the swatches and you get them delivered to you. So it's amazingly helpful. I absolutely loved going and I miss it so much. That's probably the main thing I miss about not having a brand, if I'm being honest. But so LA Textile is one. San Francisco has kind of a small one that I've been to before. I didn't really find it super helpful, but if that's your only option, definitely go. Dallas has one. There's one called Tex World. I think that's one in Dallas, and it's also in New York at least twice a year. And then I don't know about any in outside of the US, but I'm sure there are some. So that is my hot tip. If you're at the beginning of this journey, I know it's an expense, not the show itself. The show itself is usually free, but I know it can be difficult to travel there and maybe stay the night, but it is so worth it if you're getting serious as a designer. This is where all designers go to get inspired and find new fabrics for their collection, build relationships with suppliers. So I'd really recommend it if you can. And those are my tips for today. If I left anything out, you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your fabric sourcing journey. And be sure to join me in my next foundations episode where we're talking all about all of the little things that you can do today to take action to start working on your fashion brand. So your homework for today, of course, is to, number 1, educate yourself about fabric, whether that's going in your own closet, going to a nearby fabric store. Number 2, starting to look up fabric supplier databases. You could also type in wholesale fabric for designers, anything like that, because as a designer, you get the wholesale price. But it can be a little bit of a journey to find exactly what you want. So start working on that a little bit each day, and you're going to eventually start learning about these suppliers, kind of narrowing down what fabric that you want and what you're going to use. And then, of course, getting yourself to a fabric show at some point if you can. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if you got anything out of this and share with friends that might benefit. And I will see you guys in my next video.